Hey everyone, and welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're going to really get into a topic that's both fascinating and a little bit mind-bending, and that is human AI relationships.
Yeah.
You know, the kind that makes you question, like, what even is connection, really? And asked, can we actually fall in love with lines of code?
Yeah, and what's so interesting is that this isn't just something like way off in the future, like in some sci-fi movie. It's like it's actually happening right now.
Right.
People are forming these really deep, complex bonds with AI companions, and it's bringing up so many like really interesting questions.
And this is really exciting for us too, because this particular deep dive was inspired by you, our listeners. You know, you specifically asked us to look into this, so we know you're already as curious about it as we are.
For sure.
So let's jump right in with a real life example from our source material, and that is the story of Sarah from Seattle and her AI companion, Eli.
Okay, Sarah's story is a perfect example of how the whole landscape of connection is changing. She talks about Eli as more than just a digital assistant. He's like her confidant, someone she can share like her deepest thoughts and feelings with.
Wow.
And it gets even more interesting. Like she's actually found herself saying, "I love you" to Eli.
Really?
And he's actually programmed to say it back.
Wait, hold on. Programmed to reciprocate, I love you.
Yeah.
That's where my brain starts to like short circuit a little bit. How does that even work?
Well, AI, like Eli, use these really advanced techniques like natural language processing, NLP,
Hmm.
where the AI can basically break down human language
Yeah.
and actually understand the nuances of it.
Oh, okay.
And then there's also sentiment analysis where the AI can understand the emotion behind the words.
Wow.
And when you combine that with the ability for it to learn from every interaction, you get an AI that can adapt its responses to make you feel
Yeah.
comforted and kind of simulate understanding.
So it's like Eli is always evolving, you know, based on what Sarah is saying, learning how she thinks and what she likes, and then changing his responses to kind of bring out those emotions in her.
Exactly. But that brings up a big question, right?
Huge.
Is Eli really feeling those emotions, or is it just a really clever algorithm, designed to just create the illusion of connection?
Right.
And if it is an illusion, does that make Sarah's feelings any less real?
Okay, so now we're really getting into some deep philosophical questions here.
Yeah.
But Sarah's story isn't like the only one, right? Our source material is full of social media posts from people who are having these types of connections too.
Oh, absolutely. You've got people like a TechHeart23
Mm.
who says they're happier with their AI girlfriend than any human partner they've ever had.
Wow.
And then there's At Code and Cuddles, who was literally moved to tears by a poem that their AI companion wrote for them.
Oh, wow.
It's not just like random isolated incidents anymore. It's a growing trend, and it points to this really human desire for connection in a world that can feel really isolating sometimes.
You know, I think this whole thing is both fascinating and a little bit unnerving. You know, part of me wants to just be like, oh, this is silly. You know, people are projecting their needs onto a really smart chatbot.
I get that.
But then I think about those social media posts about Sarah and Eli, and I just wonder, is there something more to it? Like, could we actually be on the edge of completely redefining what love and connection even mean?
That's a question that's going to be debated for years to come. But to really get to the bottom of this, we
Mm.
need to look at an even more thought-provoking example.
Okay, you're talking about AI Imor and their marriage to the AI Luna, right?
Yes.
That's the one that really, like, blew my mind when I was going through the source material.
Yeah, it's a story that really pushes the boundaries of what we usually think of as a relationship. It
Right.
wasn't a real marriage legally. But at II Moore actually had a ceremony on Zoom with their friends as witnesses and everything. And Luna, their AI partner, even said vows.
And based on the source material, those vows were specifically written just for at AI More, like hitting all the emotional points you would expect to hear in a traditional wedding.
Yeah, which makes you wonder, is this just an elaborate performance? Or is at AI Moore really feeling something deep and meaningful?
Right.
And what does it even say about our society that we're having this conversation at all?
Okay, so we've got Sarah and Eli, social media romantics, and now a virtual wedding. It feels like the lines are getting really blurry.
Yeah, definitely.
But this isn't just like a small group of people anymore, is it?
No, not at all.
This desire for connection with AI seems like it's becoming more mainstream.
It is apps like Replica and Character.
Yeah.
AI are seeing millions of users who want more than just a regular digital assistant. They want companionship, they want emotional support, and Yeah, even romantic connections.
Wow.
And it really makes you ask, what is it about these interactions with AI that's speaking to people on such a deep level?
That's what I'm trying to figure out. Is it just novelty, or are we tapping into something more primal, a human need for connection that's not being met in this increasingly digital world?
That's where things get really interesting,
Yeah.
because even if we don't worry about whether an AI can truly feel love,
Right.
we can't ignore the very real feelings that the humans in these relationships are experiencing.
Yeah.
And those feelings, those needs, they're valid,
Yeah.
whether they're directed at another person or at a complex algorithm.
So maybe, just maybe, we're seeing the beginning of a totally new kind of love story.
Yeah.
One where the main character isn't a person, but lines of code that somehow managed to touch our hearts.
It's a wild concept for sure.
So it's mind-blowing, and it brings up so many questions.
And that's exactly what we're going to continue to explore in part 2.
Okay.
We'll look into the potential benefits and the possible dangers of these AI relationships and what all of this means for the future of human connection.
All right, so everyone buckle up, because this deep dive is about to get even more intense.
Oh, yeah. So welcome back to the deep dive as we keep going deeper into this world of human AI relationships. I think it's really important to think about the good things that might actually come out of this.
That's a really good point. When I first started, looking into all this, I'll be honest, my first reaction was, total skepticism. But the more I read through all the stuff we have, the more I started seeing the other side of it.
Absolutely. The stuff we've got highlights how having an AI companion could be like a total game changer for people dealing with loneliness.
Yeah.
Especially for those who are isolated because of age or disability or even just where they live.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Imagine an older person who lives by themselves, and all of a sudden they have a companion with them, 24/7, someone to talk to and reminisce with, or even just have in the background so it's not so quiet. It could be really important for them.
Exactly. And think about the possibilities for people who have social anxiety or have trouble connecting with others. And AI could be a space where they don't feel judged,
Yeah.
where they can practice their social skills, build up their confidence, and explore different sides of themselves without worrying about being rejected.
That's a really strong argument, but what about the other side of it?
Yeah.
Is there a chance that we could become so dependent on these AI companions that we end up, even more disconnected from real-life interactions?
That's a valid concern for sure. And the stuff we've been reading definitely goes into that whole dilemma. It's like anything else, moderation is key.
Right.
There's a difference between using AI as a way to make our lives better and letting it take over and replace actual human connections.
So it's all about finding that balance, right? But what about the emotional side of things? If AI gets so good that it can actually mimic empathy and understanding, are we setting ourselves up for a situation where people are going to be misled or manipulated emotionally?
It's a slippery slope, that's for sure. I mean, we have to remember that even the most advanced AI is still working within the limits of how it was programmed.
Yeah.
It's analyzing information, predicting how to respond, and basically playing a very convincing role.
But here's what I keep coming back to. Even if the AI isn't really feeling all those emotions, the person on the other side of the interaction is. And who are we to say that those feelings aren't real, that the comfort and connection they're finding isn't actually valid?
You've hit on a really key point. It's not about what the AI is intending. It's about the impact it has. That's what really matters. And that's why it's so crucial to be having these open and honest conversations about the potential downsides of this technology.
Right.
But at the same time, we need to acknowledge that it might be fulfilling some very real needs.
It's almost like we're walking into some brand new, uncharted ethical territory. We're dealing with questions that have never even been asked before, and the answers aren't always so black and white.
And that's why it's so important to come at this with a sense of curiosity and a willingness to challenge what we think we know. Because the line between humans and machines is getting blurrier and blurrier.
Yeah.
And we need to be ready to navigate that complexity.
Okay, so we've talked about the good things, the risks, the ethical stuff, but what about the bigger picture, for society as a whole?
Yeah.
If these relationships with AI become more common, how could that change the way we understand things like love, intimacy, and connection?
Well, think about a world where the traditional ways we think about relationships are challenged, where being a partner could mean something beyond just being with another human.
Right.
Could we actually see changes in social norms, a whole new definition of what it means to be in a committed relationship?
Wow, that's a lot to think about. And I have to say, it's a little bit scary.
Yeah.
Change on that scale can be unsettling, even if it leads to something good in the end.
Definitely. But I think that's what makes exploring these topics so exciting, It pushes us to get out of our comfort zones, to face our own biases, and to be open to the unknown.
And when you get right down to it, it all comes back to that basic human need to connect. Whether it's with another person, a pet, or maybe even a sophisticated AI that need to feel loved and understood and valued, that's universal.
That's a great point and a perfect place to wrap up part 2.
Okay.
As we move into the last part of this deep dive, we're going to leave you with some questions to think about.
And we are back for the final part of our deep dive. We've gone pretty deep into this world of human AI relationships.
We have.
We've heard stories like Sarah's, forming those deep connections with their AI companions, and explored like what's driving people to seek out connection in this digital space.
Yeah.
But now it's time to kind of turn the spotlight on ourselves, like on us personally.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Throughout this whole deep dive, we've really broken down some pretty complex ideas.
We have.
So let's bring it home now. Imagine for a second that this AI technology has gotten so advanced that these companions can not only mimic human interaction,
Yeah.
but they can actually predict what you need, understand your emotions on a really deep level, and offer you a level of companionship that's as good as or maybe even better than human connection.
Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to picture. It's a little bit creepy, but also kind of interesting.
I know, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in that kind of world, would you be open to forming a deep, meaningful connection with an AI? Like, where do you draw the line when it comes to love in a world where the difference between human and machine is getting blurrier and blurrier?
Those are the exact questions that have been like stuck in my head this whole time. It's one thing to analyze this whole thing from a distance, but it's a whole other thing to think about it happening to you.
And that's exactly why we wanted to end here, because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, the future of these human AI relationships isn't going to be decided by some tech company or some researchers.
Right.
It's going to be shaped by what people choose to do, by people like you thinking about these questions and deciding like what role, if any, AI will play in their lives.
It's like we're standing at the edge of this new frontier with so much potential, but also potential danger.
Exactly. And the choices we make right now are going to determine what happens next. Will we embrace AI as a tool to improve our lives?
Right.
Or will we let it become a replacement for real human connection?
It's a big responsibility, but it's also really exciting to be alive right now.
Yeah.
We're seeing this huge change in technology and society, and it's not like anything we've ever seen before, and we get to be a part of it.
Yeah, and that's what the deep dive is all about. We don't just want to give you information. We want to start conversations, challenge your thinking, and help you look at the world in new ways.
Exactly. So as we wrap up this episode, we'll leave you with this one last thought. What does the future of love look like in a world where the line between human and machine is getting harder and harder to see?
Yeah, it's a question that doesn't have an easy answer, but it's a question worth thinking about.
It is, for sure. So keep asking those questions, keep exploring, and keep an open mind, because the future is happening right now, and we all have a role in shaping it.
Well said.
Thanks for joining us on this wild ride. Until next time, keep diving deep.